Hey there, guys. Hey, it's David R. Becker with BeckerArt, and I'm here this Saturday evening. I'm going to do a little project I'm working on, and it's a project for Legion papers. What I'm doing is I'm using 4 of their papers, and I'm going to be painting on them the same picture. And I'm going to be doing Yupo, the black Stonehenge, Stonehenge white, and I'm going to do an oil painting on their new oil paint paper, all the same image. And so I figure this will be kind of fun and something to do. And it also shows the different techniques that you can get on all those 4 different papers. And I didn't plan to do this, but I figure I can't do anything tomorrow morning because I've got to go over to my mom's house, and since it's Mother's Day, and I got to help her with breakfast, and we're gonna be no time to do a painting. And so I figured why not better more time to do this right now. And so what you're doing is this is Stonehenge Aqua Black, and it's a black watercolor paper, and and the black watercolor paper is you can use watercolor on it, though you do need to have white on your palette, which a lot of I know watercolors don't have that because they're always were taught not to use white. But with black watercolor paper, you do have to use white because it's there's no light, and so also I'm using a little bit of gouache here too. So, but I don't need to use the gouache if I can do it with all watercolor, and then I have my titanium white, and then with titanium white I can mix my reds into a pink, my blues to a light blue, and I've got to put it on pretty thick. But when you're working with black paper, with black watercolor paper, you work a little bit opposite from white paper. So basically, you're getting your big darks done first, and you're going from your dark to your light. With when I'm working with my light white paper, I'm working from light to dark. And so let's get started to show you that what I'm going to do is I'm going to first get my dark colors in there. So let's say I want my darks not to just be black. And though in this photograph right here, they are black, but I want to put a little color into the black. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my watercolor, my transparent watercolor, and I can put a little bit of color into the black, and so that way it looks, not just solid black. And if you put it like, I mean, it's you probably won't be able to tell. Well, you can probably tell a little bit with the camera here. You can tell it's darker because it's wet. And so I'm going in here just to put some like blue. I put a little blue in there. You see, I put this little blue, and that it's going to be a dark blue because like watercolor or like white watercolor paper, you're getting the lights in there and you're going to a dark. You constantly go to a dark. But here, I'm putting my darkest darks in my large areas first because I need to get some color in that, and maybe a little bit of red in there just to kind of give it a little bit more zing instead of just solid black. When I'm doing my white paper, I kind of like to have a little bit of color even in my darks, and I use black. And a lot of people are told to mix their blacks, but I'm gonna just use these colors and put it onto black to give it a little bit of texture and color. So it's not just solid black. And I also can put a little lighter part in there. So then, I wet into wet. I float my pigment just like I do. I can even use black. If I feel like I gotta go get a little bit darker in there. Okay, kind of a gray, and it's super fun, and I really enjoy working with black because if you're using a picture like this, which is a lot of blacks in it, a lot of darks in there, it's kind of neat to be able to do it really quickly because I just once I get these colors in there, the large areas of dark. Hey Dave, thanks for joining. I didn't plan on doing this, but you're probably the only one watching. Let me see if there's anybody. It was one of those things. I just decided to do it today. Oh, we got 6 people watching. Holy smokes, that's really great. I was just gonna put it out there, and then since it's on YouTube, it's gonna be out there forever anyway. So I figure I'd just do it. And if somebody's there, somebody's there. If not, they'll see it later. And so see, I'm just going in here now and getting some red in there, red and blue. This is a little bit lighter because there's a little bit lighter part into it. But this dries, it dries about 30% darker. And so you got to remember that. And again, the reason I'm doing this is because for Legion, I use a lot of their paper. I kind of represent a lot of their papers. I really like their papers. And so they're going to be going to Pace, which is and a couple, and not next week, but the week after, not this coming weekend, the following weekend. Pace in Colorado is going to be happening, the Plein Air Painters Expo. That expo is going to be happening, and so they're going to be there. They're going to be there, and I think they're going to have a table there with their papers, and I want to show the same picture done 4 different ways on 4 different papers. So we're going to be doing it. I already done it on Yupo, which I didn't film, by the way. It was in class today, because I have to get all this stuff done now. Well, I should have put some white in my. Oh, I actually got this white too. I've got gouache white. This is gouache, and this is my watercolor. And so I'm not going to use pure white for the sky. I'm going to still make it. This is supposed to be a rainy scene, and so I got pretty much my colors for the dark. I'm going to go in here with my light, and I'm going to kind of negative paint around my darks so that I don't have to. I'm going to wet the surface, and then I'm going to put my darker. Actually, I probably should have put this darker part in there first. Oh well. So what I'm doing is I'm wetting the surface with a little bit of color white in my brush so I can see where I'm going and what I'm going to leave behind. And this is going to be soft edge, and so what I want this to feel like is like it's going to be raining. So when I did this in white and when I did this on Yupo, I kind of left it so that it's really rainy and all washy too. So I'm going to go in here and just let it pour down, and I am going to put something underneath it so it kind of goes downwards. So it's going to run down. I want it to actually run down so it has a feel of it raining. I want to have a nice blotchiness, and I'm going to put it in there. And now these lines that are going to be the wires, I'm just going to put them with black paint. Because I don't want to. I could, I guess, put masking fluid down, but I'm just going to use white paint for that. And it's really fun using black paper because it's sort of like you just turn on a light switch, basically what you're doing. And like I said, this is watercolor with white. So don't be thinking that you can't use watercolor because it's transparent. You can, but you just need to add a little bit of white or thicker amount of pigment, because you need a thicker amount of pigment to cover up the black. Like you cover up the white with a color too, right? When you're using white paper. Thanks for watching. Here, I'm going to go in here and see how neat it is, how you just kind of put the light in there. But again, this is going to be really, really, really dark when it dries. So you really have to put in a lot. And a lot of pigment you need to put in there to make it lighter. Come down here and use a little bit darker, like a building back there. Goes down to here. It's definitely different. You gotta give yourself a chance to figure it out, and you don't want to go over this completely and then just put another wash on there later. A little bit darker. Uh-oh. Stir it in there. Let's put a little more water on here and let it drip. And then I'm using kind of a turquoise on the other paintings. And here, let me show you the paintings I did on Yupo. And they're not done yet, but this is the one I shown this one in the class. So this is the one I did on white paper. So that's the white paper one. Here's when I started on Yupo. Not all the way finished with it yet. And I'm going to probably finish it with more of an acrylic. And so what I'm going to do now is on black paper, and then I'm going to do it in oil paint too. So just again, showing the same scene done, 3 different ways. Or I mean 4 different ways on 4 different papers with with 2 mediums. One is watercolor, actually 3 mediums, because watercolor, acrylic, and oils. We're going to be doing oils too. Go in here. I do like using many different mediums. I really enjoy that, and I'm going to use everything water-based, and that's the nice thing too, is I'm using a water-based oil, the duos that Holbein has, and so it's going to be no different than You know, I can start it like a watercolor like this, but I can finish it with oils. I mean, I start. It's on paper. Stonehenge just put out a paper, oil paper. So what I'll do is I'll start out on paper, and I'll start the oils like they're watercolors, and I'll just make it thicker and thicker, just like I do with the watercolors and acrylics. And this gouache too. This gouache I can make it a little bit thicker as I go along. This is really fun. I've been working with Legion a long time with this black paper. Since the start of their paper, I've been testing it for them, and so I really enjoy the black paper. It's a really fun thing to work on. Like anything, you have to get to know it and know what you need to do, how much paint to use, how much white to use in your paint, and then you know how much it dries, how light it dries, and how dark it dries. Put little streaks in here. This is still wet, so I can put streaks. I want it to feel rainy. I want it to feel like it's coming down and raining, and I'm gonna spatter it a little bit. Nice. I don't care if there's watermarks in there. I don't really care. I want it to actually be that way, and that's fine. And as long as it's wet, I can keep on going in because, like I said, it gets really dark when it dries. So you really have to put on a lot of pigment, a lot more than you think. I mean, a lot of people think it's like, oh, I shouldn't put on that much, but you really do. You have to put on pretty thick. And actually, if you do it with if you're doing it with acrylics, it's almost better, or with gouache, because gouache is made opaque, and so it works out a little bit better on that way. So now let's get to wet street. And the wet street is the same color as I used above, and so I'm going to wet it with white paint, and then I'm just going to go around these things, and so I'm negative painting in the opposite. I'm negative painting because normally you have negative paint to dark now or to light, and so the light is in front. So now the dark is basically in front or on the paper. It's just you got to get used to it. It's definitely different. And if anybody needs to ask questions, go ahead again. I'll look up once in a while. And I did. Somebody always asks, you know, how did I get the drawing on there? You can use a white charcoal pencil by General Pencils. I can do that. And there's also in my classes when I teach on black, I bring with transfer paper, like graphite, not graphite paper. Oh, I guess it is graphite or pastel paper. That's like a transfer paper. So you just transfer the image on there. And see, I'm just gonna outline these legs. So I'm doing two things at once. I'm painting the sidewalk or the street here, and doing the guy. I'm negative painting the person at the same time. And then let it be runny and let it be just, you know, it'll get nice and dark. Go through here and just get a little bit darker. And like I said, you watch how it just keeps on getting darker and darker as it dries. Now it's pretty soft paper on this black paper, so it soaks in a little bit more. So it's like a sponge almost because it kind of really soaks in, so it takes a little bit longer to dry a little bit because you know it's soft. Making this wet so it has that wet feel. Maybe spatter it a little bit. Make it look rainy. It's okay to have spattering and like raininess to it. And back and forth this way. And like, let's say you get too light, which hardly has ever happened for me, because it does get really dark. But if you want light back in or dark back in because you got it too light, you can just put black paint, and it's just right over top of it, and that works perfect. So put like paint back on. A little bit of here. I want to make this not too light, and it's kind of dark reflection from this building. And this building is kind of I don't want to make it such a straight line. It has like these little things there. Yeah, I do not recommend masking fluid on this. It really does. When I take the tape off, it usually rips off. Even the tape rips off, so it's very soft. So you don't really want to use masking fluid on it. You can probably use a tape and then heat it like I do with the white paper. But yeah, it's a really soft paper, so you almost. But we're using white paint, so just you don't really need to use masking fluid to keep something black. Just paint it, because it's a little bit different in that aspect. Because where you can go over it and then you can put black back over the top of it, and it's a little bit different in that way. This looks really light right here, but I'm gonna make that, as soon as this dries, I'm gonna put another layer. And like I said, I can make it thicker too. Like I don't need to make everything really, really washy like a watercolor. I can go in there later, and I've noticed a lot of times I do it in acrylic. Like I go back into this with acrylic, but I can do what I want to do is I'm gonna use my gouache here. With the gouache, I can go in, like let's say, I need it to be thick, I need it to cover black, so like with the umbrella, I'm gonna make it really bright red. Now, I don't know why I did that, because I can't touch this edge here, so I just wanted to show you that I'm using gouache to get like something really bright, and it's gonna be thick because I gotta cover up the white or the black. So a little bit of glue in here, and let's still get, yeah, I don't know why I did that, I just wanted to show you that you can use a gouache to get it thick. This is like our little rickshaw right here. And there's a bike in the front, so and so when you're actually drawing this, what I do is I kind of shade it in with the white, so I know which part has to be the white. Like I just know that I'm negative painting the white part, so I actually like put it in with white. I kind of shade, and then if you're using the pastel pencil, it just turns into like a pigment, the white pigment, and it just acts like watercolor. I guess you could use also a watercolor pencil, like a white watercolor pencil, to get your drawing in. You could definitely do that too. And I thought I'd demonstrate this again because I want to have a couple different things to show for them to show at the paste, like 3 different papers. But not many people do demonstrations for the black paper, so I've been one of their artists that actually does a lot of paintings on the black. So you just kind of put in all the lights, and so it's almost like you turn on a light switch. You just go in here and then turn on the light switch, and put anywhere that's showing through. Anything that's dark, you just leave it. It's there. And then I will put color in there. Like I could usually let them put color in there right away, but you don't have to do it right away either in small areas. But it is nice to get a little bit of that wash in there too, like the watercolor wash. And like, look at how it got it's almost too clean. I want to kind of go in there and maybe put some stripes in there just so I want to feel more rainy. gonna mess it up a little bit, just trying to make it look a little bit dirtier. And that'd be fun to have the lines in there too. That's gonna be great. And since it is kind of soft, it's kind of neat because you don't really get like watermarks as much as like those watermarks that you get on white paper, which is kind of neat because it'll just blend in into the paper. But like with any watercolor or any painting, the best is always to get your wash done and get in and get out. It's always like, no matter what paint or medium you're using, it's usually that you should try to get in there, get your stuff done, and then move on, get out as much as possible right away. So now there's a building right here, but again, I'm gonna wait for that to dry. This is a tree here, so let me put a little bit of dark bluish green in there. Let's get a little bit of green. Kind of like a super, super dark green. Just gonna put that in there, like little branches, leaves. There we go. Oh, and then there's a sign right here. I think I can do the rest of the umbrella now too, because then it's a little bit drier. So like I said, I am using it pretty thick, so I don't need to have it run. I just use it pretty thick. And I can put those little things of white in there too to show it's like sparkle and shiny. So like over here is a little bit darker red, and so you make it darker red. Or just not put as much on, put more water there so that the black shows through. And actually underneath they got it even lighter, so I'm gonna take a really light orange underneath. Make it a little bit lighter, even kind of pinkish orange, salmony. Get this side. And notice I'm using gouache for that, because I do want it to cover up. And I'm trying to cover up with, and I'm gonna put a little bit of red into her, so that it's so reflective and it's reflecting into her body. It's not like she's wearing red, but you know the light is kind of going through the umbrella, making it reflect on her. And actually this side of the umbrella should be darker, so I'm just going to pull a little bit of the paint away. Make it thicker over here on the bottom. Let's keep looking all this around over here. Notice now it's kind of, I want to make it a little bit darker. And like I said, you can always go black. You know, go put solid black back into that. Let that rain down a little bit here. And then I gotta get the white done a little bit better than what it is. You got the lights in here. And I like to mix a little bit of a lot of the color that's in there, and so when I look at how light this is or how dark this has gotten, it's really keeps on getting darker and darker, which is, you know, you don't want to get too bright with it. So there's a little thing here. Yes, that's right. I do have to have red hair on the lady. Yep, you know me well now. I always put red hair women in all my pictures. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of like a mirror here. All kinds of stuff that's going on right there. It's details, and it's neat because the big areas are kind of done as soon as you get the big areas washes in there, and black and a little black with the red here. Get my red coming back, or my darker red, so, but just put dark black back in there. And then I'm gonna get some white, pink, because it does like reflect a little bit on the top. It kind of reflects a little bit of the light right here. Kind of goes down, so it kind of gets a little bit of shininess to it. There's a black little the pole that is holding. Like I said, I put in the darks back in afterwards. Like I don't try to go around that. That's too much. So now there's that building back here, and so I'm just going to take a little bit darker color, and I'm going to make it a little bit warm with a little bit of orange, gray. And so there's a building right here. No, it's not dark enough. Use a little bit of black and blue. You could do like watercolor where you go back and you rub back down to the black of the paper. You know, you can do that. Like that's what we do with the white paper. We kind of go back and we rub out like a dark to get back to the white of the paper. But this will be fine, and because I don't want it so much darker right here. And just want to make it look like it's raining. There's a building back there. And actually, I kind of like the fact that it is a little bit darker. And I do have to put a little bit lighter. I do want to make this part a little bit lighter so that it's a little bit brighter. So we'll put that in there later. Take a paper towel. I'm gonna dab it with a paper towel to get rid of some of the white. See, I can just take it off, and now it goes back down to the black paper. On the other side here, same thing. A little bit darker. I'm just gonna. Seems like it's easier to just wet it and then take off some of the paint. Now this one, I want to put a little bit of red shining in here. Just it's not a red umbrella, but it's close enough to this one that I kind of want to have a little bit of warmth of that in here. So I want a little bit in there, going around his head. Some black in there, and then there's a little bit of light going through here. In the background, there's a little bit of light on that wall. Oh, that's actually the side of the wall. I'm not going to put that light there because otherwise I feel that it looks like the wall stops, and I'm just going to let it go down. So let's make the umbrella lighter instead. Make the edge like lighter. Dude, this is so smooth, and that's a wall. So again, I'm gonna mess it up a little bit. I'm just gonna go in there, some water down, some pigment down. And I feel I'm not so much a transparent watercolorist when I'm doing this. I'm kind of going more towards like a gouache kind of watercolor when I do this, only because you really don't need to have it transparent. It looks just as good if you don't have it transparent. I'm gonna put a little sidewalk type of thing here, curb in here, just to give it some look of texture. Basically, you want texture here and there, and do want to put a little bit of something in him too, like reflecting a little bit of, and it looks really bright right now, but it will get darker. See how everything fades. Everything really fades a lot. The back she's holding is a little bit lighter up here, and it kind of goes down, so I can do that. You can also make that a different color, maybe make it a little bit warm. When I say warm, you know, you can use any color warm, orange, red, a little bit of lavender, purple. There's a bunch of stuff happening over here. Let me take my smaller brush. Again, back at the bike, you gotta get a little bit more tighter with all this little. Cause basically the bicycle is very much the center of interest right in here. So get as much detail in there as you possibly can in your center of interest, and still make it look, you know, nice and fresh. And that's the post of the bike. Lost the steering. The steering wheel I lost, so I'm gonna put that in with black paint. There's a wheel back here. Get this back to black a little bit. Yeah, it is very much a big thing about negative painting, and the opposite in some ways, but I find it's easier on this paper, on black paper, than on white paper, negative painting, because you're basically just turning on the light switch and you're putting a light in. And so, like, this part right here is really, really light. So what I'll do is I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. I'm just going to use, like, almost pure white here. Like where I want my center of interest. I'm going to go around this stuff. And then I'm just going to pull it up, wet it. Oh, that was wet still, darn. Use a little bit of the gouache. And see, you know, it's still wet, so I'm getting a soft edge there, which that's fine too. What the heck, it's okay to have all the soft edges there. And I'm not trying to make it look like a photograph, so that's like I'm trying to get messy. I'm trying to make it look like what kind of wash would look best in, like, in this kind of look on black. Is it a transparent wash? Is it thicker paint like an oil painting? Because really, like an oil painting, the thick paint is what makes it look really cool. But not so thick that it's sticking out. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, or, you know, that you can do with gouache. Put this rickshaw in here yet. Kind of the side of the rickshaw, and then this just bleeds in there, bleeds away. Get a little bit lighter on this side of his face too, so it looks like it's whatever on this side is a little bit the same on that side. Then we can also put like little rim lighting on them, because it is like him especially, because, or her, we can put a little bit on his shoulder, like it's shiny. there's a building back there, but it's not as vibrant as there was, and maybe also there's little windows back here. This has some things going really light up in, like, I'm not sure how this building is, what is happening in this building. Whenever you have a pole or something like that, you gotta make sure what's on one side is the exact same on the other. Like this and this have to be the same. Otherwise, it looks like there's a wall or something in between that. You have to make it the exact same value, same color. I'm just gonna get little dots too. You can get little dots because it's raining, so it'd be neat to put little like spatter little dots in the street. So I'm just gonna just spatter a little bit, make it messy. We should have one spot right down the middle that's the lightest, like right here is the lightest, and so you really want to make it look like the light is coming right through there. And then down here, look at down here, it has a big bright, use it bright as a paper and just make it look like it's really shiny down here. And then we got to put a little bit more of this red elsewhere, because the red by itself like that, like maybe the rickshaw here, make it a little bit red, so not that bright, but enough so it looks like it's just shining there a little bit. Top of the bike is metal, so that would shine, because metal shines, and then it's like a mirror. Anything that's shiny reflects other colors that are around it, so put a little bit of that. And maybe it could be a red bike too, so that I do have that color elsewhere. Oops. I'm going to cross it a little bit. Dots. Lines. Highlights, little highlights on the bike. And the most fun will be putting in the wires, because this picture is really cool with all the wires that are going around, and that's just done with a what do you call it, a rigger brush. I'll be using my rigger for that. Let's put a little bit of color in this guy's hair. Give this guy, not red. We don't have to make the guy red either too. We can just give him brown. A little bit more red in here, reflecting underneath. I was always told, like, underneath stuff, you make it warm, looking into something underneath, because it's like the earth, and it's just shining back up into the eave of things, or like an umbrella into the top of there. You can make it a little bit like it's warm inside. Same thing underneath here too. You can do that, a little bit of warmth underneath, and that, but not as dark, not as bright as the red umbrella in there. All right, let me just get to the. Let's go right to the black details. Everything about there. He's got maybe a briefcase, so I'm gonna put a little color into that too. Nice thing is you don't have to do much when it comes to making your darks colorful. You just put a tint of color on something, and it's fine. It's enough to make it look good enough. Just a little bit. I'm just making it look like it's, you know, a lot of little glistening little dots. I think I need to spatter a little bit more. So I'm going to take my brush, get some white. Go in there a little bit. See, making it a little blurry is a good thing because I mean everything, it's like looking through raindrops going down. So you want to have a little bit of things that are blurry, and so by doing that and just running across there. Just a little bit lighter. It's a little bit too red. All right, 2 more things, and we're just drying it. Oh, it's going to take forever to dry. Oh, I don't have a heater. Oh, I have a heater. Let me put a little bit of something on there. It's a little bit lighter. Yeah. Hey, Maria. Thanks for stopping by and watching. Very dramatic. Definitely dramatic, but I love rain scenes. That was always my favorite in Chicago. I used to love when it started raining and I headed to the train. I was always like, oh, yes, I get tons of pictures. So I always love that. I'm going to just give it a little bit of like a look of rain again, because rain it messes things up because it's like makes things blurry. And there's a little bit of gouache in here. Like I use some of the gouache that's a little bit thicker, and that's fine. I'm going to heat it up here so I can put my wires in. And I was telling that class, we did this in white paper in the class yesterday when I was in Morris, Illinois, and I was telling them that a lot of them put it in way too thick, and really it's when you're doing a sailboat or something that has lines in it, make sure you can use it. Matter of fact, use a pencil if you need to, like a watercolor pencil, because if you make a thick line, it just wrecks everything. It really does, because it's like it looks so unprofessional if you make a really thick line in there. So I'm going to use my Wagner heater here on low because I don't want to burn it, but I'm just going to go in here real quickly, make that really warm. And that way I'm going to put, you can also, if you have to make them straight, but these wires I don't want to make straight, like with a ruler. That's like almost too much. So I'm just going to go in there and look and see how dark it gets. Again, I just put almost pure white right there, and it just gets so dark. A little more, but I guess it's light enough. I mean, I don't need it exactly like the photo. All right, so a rigger brush is the best for that, and definitely get yourself a piece of paper and practice if you need to. Like, take your brush. I'm just going to use solid black. Just going to dip into my peach black, and I'm just going to practice that you get it really thin. You know, when you go, you got to make it really thin, nice and. You know, when you get started, just go. Don't stop. You don't go like this and go really slow and try to get a really straight line because you're going to go wiggle up and down. So just get in there and look where you're going. Like start and then just go. Let's see. in the photo, we have a lot of lines in here. So one that goes down. Then we got little dots there for each wire. Looks like there's a dot. And then we got things attached that to the pole. The pole itself maybe is a little bit cleaner. I can go down with it. On this side, we got a bunch of junk in here. Now we've got lines going 1, 2, 3. We've got, boy, there's a lot of wires hanging on this thing. That's what I really love about this picture is all those wires. I mean, it makes it so dramatic, and it just is so neat to have that. And even these poles, look at there's like the umbrella handles, and on the top here, we have this one right here. And then we have all these other ones. And so the hard one is the ones that go all the way across. So I'm just going to go make these first. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going down. I'm just going to make one like this. Going to hang some around. They have to be really thin. Make them really nice and thin, and leave them right there. All right, here we go. A lot of times I like to start like up here on the tape and just say, okay, there we go. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we have one going this way. Then I'm gonna put this, it has like a little line right through here. You can put a couple of dots on it, like birds are sitting on it. There's a little dot right here, line. I'm gonna put an extra one in there just because. Now this one was not a thin line. Let's make that a big one. Maybe go down here. I'm not sure what that is. The sign up here, I can make it a little bit lighter so it doesn't look like it's part of the umbrella here. I can do a little like the part of the sign is a little bit lighter. A little bit of orange on this sign. Alright, is there any more? Let's see. Seems like I want to put something more here. This kind of got away from me in the building. I didn't draw it exactly like that, so I'm going to put a pole right here. And then just do a little, like, same thing, a little bit of pole, and maybe it's a bunch of stuff happening there. Alright, I think that's all. We didn't get the shadowing reflection of the bag in here, so let's put that in there real quick. Let's get this guy a little bit more like top, like it's not totally flat. Put some blue in his blue jeans. Maybe he's got blue jeans on. So it just doesn't look so black. There's nothing. It's just solid black. And here I do want it like solid black inside this thing because I don't want you to see anything there. And if anything, just to get more rain coming down, just kind of go like this. Wisp it a little bit. Well, I think that's it, guys. I think that'll be enough. And so tomorrow morning I couldn't do it because I'm going over to my mom's house and I got to cook my mom brunch. I got to do brunch with it at my mom's house. So didn't have time to do a little Sunday morning painting. So I thought I figured I might as well do it tonight and get it over with. So I want to, again, I needed to do this anyways because I'm doing 4 of these on different papers. So now we got 3. Now I'm going to have to do the oil painting because I'm going to do some oil on the oil paper, and the same image too, which I'm gonna get really tired of this same image, but it's gonna be kind of cool. Just a little bit lighter. So does that look like an alley in Chicago? But they don't have usually too many rickshaws there, so. It's a little lighter. All right, let's take the tape off now. The tape is probably gonna rip it a little bit, but that's okay. So see how it the tape. See how it's nice and it gets dark. So it's definitely rips off some of it, but it doesn't matter right there. But see how it's taking black off. So yeah, it's pretty soft paper. You just gotta watch it. Don't rip it off fast. The tape. Just do it like this. And again, don't use masking fluid on it if you don't have to, because you really don't need to, because you're putting on the lights, and so you really don't need to save blacks. The black you can just put back on with black paint if you do need to do it, like save some black on there. This is what you're doing because you're negative painting the black, right? So there you have it, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by tonight and watching, and let's get this out of the way. So there it is on black paper. Here it is on white paper. And here it is on Yupo paper, which is not done yet. I may still work on this a little bit, but this is Yupo paper, which is really, I'm going to put a little bit more acrylic on there just to make it look just not so, it's really sloppy. And so I'm going to try to do a little bit more with putting big washes on it. The nice thing is with Yupo paper, watch this. You can take the Yupo paper and you can. I'm just going to take a little paper towel and watch this. I can just, if I want to rub something off, like look at it right there, I'm just rubbing, I can rub it back to white. And same thing over here, I can rub it all the way back to white. You just take it, and so we'll see. We'll get that done this week before I get to Colorado, because next week I'm going to the expo, the Plein Air Expo in Colorado. So that's going to be kind of fun. All right, well, thanks, guys. And hey, please wish your mother a happy Mother's Day. And I will see you on Thursday. And if you don't get my newsletter, please get my newsletter, and it shows what we'll be painting on Thursday. All right, until then.